and after which we'll look back at today as if it were almost 100 years ago. Democratic representatives, I would imagine they're going to get up and try to explain to the world that racism is the cause. And I find that to be unacceptable and really just inaccurate. There's like some kind of like this should still be a debate is magical to me, I think, but the idea of universal health care, it shouldn't be a goal after Trump. I think it very much needs to be a starting point. We're witnessing a betrayal by both the Democrats and the Republicans. Talked to this one Democratic representative the other day about forming a community resilience meetup or a think tank, and this guy, I am not joking with you, he got offended. And he suggested that he come up with the solutions, that he control the solutions. When the government starts to catch up and starts to really formulate itself around a more moral, guided sense of principles, that won't excuse the people who listened. That won't excuse everyone who just simply sat aside. Transactional. He's talking about the emotions of people, but he's talking about it in such a transactional way. It's so crazy. Him being the leader of Palantir trying to blow the whistle about the Antichrist, and I mean, it's crazy because when you think about the tools of the Antichrist, you'd probably think Palantir was like up front. It's up next in terms of it's the one that the Antichrist would say, I really like what Palantir. But when you think about that, it is sick the way he thinks about humanity, because it's just like, hey man, I've had some friends who were just kind of like, really depressing about humanity, where things are going, and by all means be that, but if those same friends got into politics, it's just like, wait a second, what do you They're creating platforms with the intentions that people won't look at them based on what, they're platforming. The way Peter talks about really this, at some point he talks about this fear of stagnation in terms of the nuclear age. I would say this brings to mind the idea of how we rushed into the atomic age, right? People were so excited, right? This was the future. This was projected that the world would be primarily run on nuclear energy today. When we had our eyes just lit up by the idea of the potential of nuclear energy, is that we rushed and we started doing things. And in terms of testing, we rushed the hydrogen bomb in particular. We tried to promote, of course, nuclear energy, right? The idea was the testing was a problem, but the nuclear energy in itself was something we also rushed into because we tried to transition people from particularly submarines. way Peter talks about AI, that's kind of how I think about that. That it makes me think about nuclear testing, the nuclear, what happened in those days. Tech bros, they get in their software and they're like, oh my god, this is like so cool, we can just experiment. And like you get like the worst thing that happens is, oh, we got to do a software update for like all of the, for the computer or the phones or whatever. We're talking about people's lives now. FBI formed under him, I'll say, right? And he justified like pioneering our current surveillance state under the fear that communists were infiltrating. The CIA was transformed into pretty much this secret society. And many people would say that they act and they experiment outside the conventional moral restrictions. we really need this dynamic to change, because when people are actively paying attention, the ASCE, they'll just publish the report and they'll let people rip the Congress to shreds based on what's on the report. It's embarrassing, I think, because you hear a lot of our country boast, and they like loudly talk, they loudly proclaim that they're the best country in the world, and our own group of engineers have decided that we are barely making it. Drinking water got like a C minus, right? And I really think that means that some town of poor people is actively being poisoned as we speak. Energy got a D plus. I'm picturing duct tape being used somewhere somehow. school's got a D plus, and I'm expecting that once Peter Thiel and Elon, make all of our kids cyborgs, that won't even matter anymore. The populace really needs a more powerful understanding of what infrastructure really is and what it means for our society when we get a grade like a C. Within this bounds of territory that the military is protecting, that's where our unique society takes form and takes shape, right? Our unique civilized society takes form and takes shape. Now, the direct and honestly, the primary benefit of living in a society is that infrastructure that's available within this territory. There was one philosopher, particularly, I think he was in India, he said that, he had a quote, it was just like, modern society has its churches as well, and they are called infrastructure. Called water privatization, right? And this is basically where corporations and businesses come into a city to handle the publicly available water. Biden appoints really this investment banker to this advisory council for the nation's infrastructure. And all of a sudden, they're producing recommendations to reduce the barriers for corporations to get into the privatization of water. I think we need to understand something. When corporations decide to and have to really make the decision to put a dollar amount to human lives, you will see monstrosity take place. There was apparently an organization that surveyed 11 privatized water utilities, and all but one of these guys refused to provide data about how many shutoffs took place under them. And this, I mean, imagine a government just refusing to provide that data, like in the United States, just refusing to say how many people had their water shut off. It's crazy, but these guys are going to get away with that, and they're going to be a lot more. They're going to be able to be a lot less transparent with people if they're allowed to keep doing this. Like, not a lot of people are looking right now, and I think that's because things are at an acceptable level. But when we have like a serious problem, right, because we do have an aging infrastructure, these investors, they're going to, I don't know how many of us are hopeful that they'll decide that owning another yacht is, less important than preventing the next Flint, Michigan. But I'm not very hopeful that they'll make the right decision there. United Healthcare, they started acting in a way, basically providing more healthcare to more people. But the investors called them and complained. I am not joking with you. They complained that their investment wasn't getting the expected returns. I think that we can safely assume that the very best outcome for privatization and utilities that have been privatized is that they will keep that grade steady. In this renaissance, I really want us to rein in these guys and rein in these companies that are just completely unhinged in their greed and desire for money. They are going to be one of the foundational guilds that specifically functions to turn us as a society into symbiotes for Earth. Like I said, it feels like war is a crime, like it's kind of hard to hear and try to really wrap your head around the idea of a war crime. This quote, I forget who said it, but they said that war is politics by other means. And I very much do believe that the function of the primary function for politicians should be to prevent war. the idea is they want to restrict the use of biological weapons and the torture of prisoners, among many other things, right? There's like tremendous guidelines, and the CIA had a book to where they got together and they decided, hey, everything that we put in this book won't be considered torture. They make sure to designate the difference between civilians and combatants, right? And they also do this between civilian infrastructure and military infrastructure. But let's say if you bomb an entire apartment building for a single target, you may very well be found guilty of a war crime. Cough, Signalgate, cough. We haven't really acknowledged some pretty significant documents related to war crimes and international law. And like I said, I really And this idea of international court should have more teeth, right? In terms of just being able to carry through and punish people who commit war crimes. But it seems like we would be in a direct conflict of interest. They sent the FBI. They sent a lot of investigators down there to do some, actual work. And a lot of times, the actual perpetrator would get off in a lot of cases. This, the FBI doing their investigations, a lot of times they did gather a lot of paperwork. And I mean, in many cases they just didn't do much but record things, right? And it sounds like this leaves us with a lot of information to dig through in terms of the idea of cold cases in general. We need to have a understanding about where we come from, and that's based in reality, right? Because the idea of cold cases and investigating cold cases, it's not about digging these cases up and rubbing these cases in the faces of like Republicans who deny that racism is a thing today. If there was an analogy, if there was like historical information about blacks being guilty of killing large groups of people, and I'm advocating for a return of that culture in any way, I think I'd have a responsibility to investigate that. I think a lot of people are very much disillusioned about what the past was, and I think that if we can glue the world together, we would have to start with very real pieces. Pluto, Scorpio, and the 8th house, they represent the idea of investigations and investigators. In addition, they represent transformation and the things that we really don't want to see. Okay, so I would say that this stuff, it can be harsh to really go through a lot of these things, but they may be very much worth it in terms of the value that we get through the transformations. And I don't know if you can tell yet, but the idea here is I'm very much interested and invested in transforming a city's culture by various means. I would say, or I'm definitely a construction specialist on resume, but in terms of a more accurate title for myself, I would say is more so, I would guess, a engineer of energetic environments. For those who don't know, Washington, D.C. was not always Washington, D.C. It was transformed into the capital that it is today. There are also some really just great Islamic cities that were transformed, and they're transformed in various ways, but they added libraries and just various forms of art in general. One city in particular, Baghdad, in the height of its civilization, it was a great city or a great center for just Islamic culture, right? And they prioritized translating like various books, and they were known for being really a powerhouse when it came down to like just pioneering a lot of like science and they were essentially designing the various parts of the city and the festival just around the concept of shedding more light on the books available. One was called the Night of the Books, right? And this was a 24-hour marathon of activities. And another thing was called the Book Parade. something very interesting called the Royal Portuguese Reading Room, and that's in the capital. There's also this concept around a book-themed neighborhood, and that is another tremendous source of I suppose it is a tremendous source of confirmation, but it's a tremendous source of inspiration, is what I really meant to say. And the idea here is that, you guys have maybe come into contact with like neighborhood little libraries or little free libraries where everybody kind of stores their books. And this is kind of the concept of a neighborhood little library evolved. To think about what makes a city transform, and what changes have you seen or heard about in terms of transforming the culture around a city. What changes would you like to see, or better yet, just flat out, what would you say makes a Renaissance city?